Matters.
And good morning, everybody. This is Joe Allen, and welcome to another edition of Giving Matters, a show that talks about all things philanthropy. I'm sitting here in the beautiful studios of WRCR, and all around me it's still white from snow, but I'm enthused today. I know the change is beginning. We turned the clocks the other night, and that's the first sign where I'm watching baseball from Florida, and I know it won't be too long until our friends, the Boulders behind us, are playing, and the Yankees and Mets, and it will be the big change. So if you've been despairing about this winter, as I certainly have, I'm here to tell you that the big change is starting, and you'll see it where you are soon. I have a terrific show today. It's one of my favorites that we've done in the sequence. We're talking about Hudson Valley Honor Flight. And my guest today is Beth Vaught, the executive director of that great organization. And if you don't know about Honor Flight, they bring World War II veterans down to Washington, D.C. to visit their monuments and memorials. And they bring them back, and it's a day of celebration, and it makes World War II veterans receive the welcome that many of them never got, and it makes them feel like $1 million, and it's an outpouring of love from the community that you won't see in any other way. Many people have, over the years, lost a sense of gratitude that we all felt to World War II veterans, and this is an incredible way to get that back. So stay connected to Honor Flight, Hudson Valley Honor Flight, and we will all be able to tell those heroes who really saved the world how important they are today and to us. And so with that, welcome, Beth. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Joe. It's a pleasure.
Beth is the executive director, and perhaps you can tell us a little bit about Honor Flight, how it started in this area, and how people can get involved with it.
So we are actually a hub, one of about 133 around the country, as a part of Honor Flight Network. So it is a national organization. We took our first flight out of Stewart Airport in 2012, and now here it is, 2015, and we have 4 flights coming up this year. We last year in 2014, we had the privilege of being able to fly out of Westchester Airport for the first time. And so it's a really special day. It's more than just a trip to Washington, D.C. It's a way to show, as you said, to show these heroes the gratitude that we have to them for their service and their sacrifice to our country.
It's very awe-inspiring. I've taken 2 of the flights, and I'll explain why in a little bit, but I've taken 2 of the flights and have been around the veterans for quite a while now, and it really is awe-inspiring. These are men and women who've grown shorter in stature, and they walk slower, and some of them have difficulties in other ways. And then you realize these are the guys that jumped out of transports and parachuted out of airplanes and stormed beaches and had done everything that needed to be done to win that war, in both the European and Pacific theaters. And I'll tell you, you just be in their presence, you can't imagine the feeling you get.
They are some of the most humble men and women that I have met. They often don't accept gratitude. They don't think that what they did was special. They feel like they did their duty as Americans. But the graciousness in them when they come on this flight is really awe-inspiring, to take your words. Really, If you were to come to one of our flight send-offs, so we start the morning rallying the community, sometimes up to 1,000 people at the airport, cheering on our veterans as they get ready to take off, chanting USA. It's just, if you come and see it, you will be hooked. You'll never want to miss a flight again.
You know, what stands out for me is you watch these guys and women get on the plane, and they're a little unsure of how they ought to behave or how they ought to stand. And each veteran that goes on a flight is accompanied by a guardian who makes sure their needs for the day are met. But they're a little timid when they first get on the plane. But by the time they get down to Washington, they're all a bunch of James Cagneys and Pat O'Briens, and they're slapping each other on the back saying, yeah, I transported you, you had it easy, and they just have a great time for the day.
They really do. And, quite honestly, a lot of them have not spoken about their war experiences since they came home. And being together as a group, I think, encourages them to open up a lot more than they did before.
And they really do open up, and when they get down to Reagan National Airport, they don't expect this, but they walk through the jetway and are met with hundreds and hundreds of well-wishers right at the gate, and they're saluted and they're told thanks for your service, and they're hugged and kissed, and they feel great. And that's only the start of the day, because they get onto buses and they go to the World War II Memorial, and they get off and are there, and everybody who comes to the World War II Memorial, veterans or visitors or family members, are inspired by these folks. It doesn't even end there.
I know. It's really a day packed full of exciting surprises for them, and just continuing to show them the gratitude that we feel. This is what we can do to help them have an enjoyable day. It's really a group effort. We have so many volunteers, and like you were talking about, guardians. Sometimes they're family members, but sometimes it's just somebody who wants to say, hey, can I be part of this? And some of those bonds are still connected, all these years since then. So 2012 was our inaugural flight, and we have different events throughout the year. And some of our guardians continue to connect with their veterans and bring them to our events. We have a luncheon of honor every year, and the connections are really just beautiful.
When I first began my involvement with Honor Flight, one of the members, a great guy that I look up to, named Greg Furlong, explained something to me called honor flight allergies, which you can't help but be around these guys and have your eyes filled and moistened, and so many of the people there say, I just got allergies, but you're there and you're seeing an emotional moment, and these guys and women are quite old, and there won't be many left for too long a time. So it's pretty important to show them what we can. By the way, if you want to get involved in this conversation, and I hope you do, the number is 362-0013. Beth and I would love to talk to you about Honor Flight. I want to just turn for 1 second and say there's something pretty big going on this weekend here in Rockland County. A similar thing went on in Orange County on Saturday, and it's a documentary about Hudson Valley Honor Flight called Hudson Valley Honor Flight Generation Bridge, and it's a great documentary about bringing the veterans down, what's involved in all of that, and more importantly, or equally as importantly, bringing the veterans into the schools where they have an opportunity to talk to and influence and excite middle schoolers and high schoolers about World War II. Because the truth is, most of what youngsters today are learning about World War II is coming out of books, and here they have the opportunity to have a real icon of history. And the documentary, and I'll, by way of transparency, I happen to be the producer and director and writer, and I've been washing bottles and carrying equipment. It's at the Suffern Theater, the beautiful, beautiful Lafayette Theater in Suffern. It was last Saturday at the equally beautiful Paramount Theater in Middletown. And it premieres this Saturday at 5 o'clock in Suffern. And we are really excited about it. And tell me a little bit about the movie.
I have to tell you, Joe, it is a gift that you have given to us to capture and memorialize what we do. But like you said, it really is two pieces. It's the getting our message out about what we do, and it's the connection with the young adults. And as we were talking earlier about making sure that that message gets out and that these veterans know that they're not forgotten, to connect with the young generation is really powerful for them. I think we were talking a little bit about the fact that there's a little trepidation originally. You know, these elderly folks are looking at the youngsters with a little bit of curiosity and uncertainty. And the same goes for the youngsters. You know, originally they just see an old person. But it isn't until they start talking and make that connection, and you see it in their eyes, you see the respect. And I think that it has given our veterans hope.
You know, this happens time and time again. You see somebody in the supermarket, or you see somebody online somewhere, and they're old, they're 90 years old, and they don't move as fast. And sometimes I notice that people are impatient with them, and they want to get what they need done, but there's this old guy or old woman in front of them. And it turns out that that old guy was one of those who jumped onto the beach at Normandy, or one of those who stood guard at Pearl Harbor as the planes came in, or was involved in the Battle of the Bulge, or some of the worst things that we have seen. And I've seen this over and over and over again, and I have a brand new respect that was probably dwindling in me for the generation before ours, and I'll never forget that now. It's amazing to watch that transformation.
Yes, and I think that connecting to the young adults is going to make sure that their stories are brought forth to the next generation. And that was what one of the young adults who participated in this project shared, that they got to participate in a piece of living history. And so it's not just what's written in the books. It has meaning now. They connect it with a person, with a voice, with someone who came home and told their story afterwards and what it means in their hearts.
It took about 18 months to do this film, and it took me quite a long time, along with a younger gentleman named Chris Kenley, who we brought on to do some of the work, who was the director of cinematography or photography and was our editor. We had 1,000 hours of material, and we had 75 interviews over 18 months. So it took a long time. I think we have a caller. Can we bring that caller in? How you doing, caller?
I'm well, and how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Can we talk a little today?
Yes, we certainly can. Unfortunately, I got into the car and picked up on your conversation, partially through it. However, I have to tell you, I had the honor to witness and be involved with the honor flight in San Diego last year.
That's great. I'm sure
it was
Go ahead.
Overwhelming.
In what way?
The sense of pride.
Yeah.
The sense of respect.
Yep. And you realize that that without what these men and women did, our country would be extremely different if it existed at all.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But if anybody, any of your listeners can possibly witness any of either the return flights or the flights that are taking off, absolutely do it. Mm-hmm. You will never, ever regret it. And it will be in your heart forever.
Yes. And you're absolutely true. Someone said you can't touch this subject without being drawn into it deeply, and it's very true. And I'm sitting next to somebody who was a volunteer and was drawn into it, now is the executive director of the organization.
Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate your sharing your feelings about it. Like I said, we have 2 flights coming up this spring, April 11th out of Stewart Airport and May 9th out of Westchester Airport. And if you can come to our send-off or our rally welcome home, we would love to have you there and have you experience it in the same way as you did. So thank you again for sharing.
And thank you.
I would absolutely love it. And you said Stewart's going to be, what, April 11th, you said?
Yes, yep. And all that information is posted on our website. So for any listeners who are looking for the details of where to go to be part of this amazing experience, can go to hvhonorflight.com.
And
terrific. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the call today. I hope you have a wonderful day and spring comes quick for you.
Oh, I hope so. Have a great day, folks.
All righty. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, that was nice. And for someone who can't get to an honor flight or hasn't seen an honor flight, Hudson Valley Honor Flight Generation Bridge pretty much is tells the story of how the day goes and what happens. And it will be motivating for people to reach out to other World War II veterans and say, "Listen, you've got to go to this. You've got to see this." If somebody wants tickets, it's available at www.generationbridge.bpt.me. generationbridge.bpt.me. And we'd love to fill the house. We'd love to show the veterans what we feel about them. We had pretty close to a full house in Middletown, and when the veterans stood up or when they came in front of the crowd, the people went crazy. I've never seen anything like this with World War II veterans. I said the other day, I grew up in the era right after World War II, and I spent all my time growing up in Queens and playing Army in the alleys and on the grassy areas, and I was everybody from Vic Morrow in combat to Steve McQueen as Virgil Hiltz in The Great Escape, and then I switched and played Lee Marvin in The Dirty Dozen. I just was everybody. And then in the mid to late 60s, politics came in, and we stopped saluting our World War II veterans because we were mucked up with this political stuff, and that continued into the other conflicts, and we sort of lost contact with the World War II veterans. But this project, Honor Flight, is an amazing way to reconnect with the past that made us who we are today. We have another caller on the line. Let's get the dialogue going. Good morning, caller.
Good morning. Very interesting subject. I just lost my father-in-law in November, and he was World War II. And he never spoke. My husband said he never spoke about the war. Neither did another uncle of mine who was lost at the Battle of the Bulge, and they thought he was dead. And going through my father-in-law's belongings, he had a trunk there with all the letters that he wrote during the war. So we are now going through that and looking at all the letters to his mother, his wife, the woman he married, and even one from, I think, Eisenhower. And he did lose a brother. He did lose a brother in the war. I know a lot about, and I shouldn't say no, I knew a lot about it because my father, may he rest was too young to join, but his brothers did. And I would find out from my parents about the war bonds and the efforts, and of course a little bit about the war too, because his brothers were there. But I'm glad that you're doing this, and it is a part of history that the young people do not know about, and it's very important. It's very important, and I think, like you said, being there and telling the story rather than reading about it is, I think it's wonderful. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
It means a lot. The population of World War II veterans are dwindling. Time is taking them at a rate of about 500 or more a day. And that means with well under 1 million still remaining out of the 16 million that began, less than 1 million now, time is the biggest obstacle to making sure all the veterans get down there. And every flight it becomes a little bit slower and more difficult as more and more of them need assistance in getting around. But again, everyone is touched by that. And what the caller said is very, very true. A lot of these folks do not talk about their experiences, and it makes sense, because you can tell your family and you can tell people close to you over and over and over again, say how cold the water was when you jumped out of the transport, and they'll never ever understand it. They can't. They simply can't understand it. But when the veteran gets on the flight and he looks over to the guy next to him and says, "Boy, that water was cold," he knows that guy knows exactly what he's talking about.
It's a wonderful connection that they continue to make with each other. And we saw it at the movie premiere when they were together, like, "Oh, how you doing? I haven't seen you. How have you been?" And that connection is really powerful. And as I mentioned, we started this organization up in Orange County, and we've moved south, and we really want to reach out to our Rockland County families and say, "Hey, do you know a World War II veteran who has not been on this flight?" Because we want to make sure we're reaching as many veterans, maybe your grandfather, your great aunts and uncles. These are the places where we want to find these veterans.
And you listen to little old folks. They're small in stature now, and they can't speak as well. And you listen to their stories, and every one of them has a story that said that they were essential to the war effort. And by the way, it's not just those who actually went and saw combat. It's those in support teams, and it's those who stayed home and worked at the rationing boards and worked in the factories and did all the things that our country needed to do to make sure that war effort continued and that we had a chance to win. So it's people from all around the service areas. And I'll tell you one thing that we hear over and over again, and Beth, you hear it more than I do because you're around it more. If you try to call one of these people a hero, they recoil and they go, "No, we're not. I'm not a hero. We're not the heroes. The heroes are the ones we left behind on a hillside, on a battlefield, buried at sea, somewhere that they didn't come home."
It is. It's very powerful, and we respect every single one of them for the sacrifices they made, for those who didn't come home, for those who came home and had to bury the sadness that they felt. It really, you are talking about some tough men and women, and to have the ability for them to give them an arena where they can open up and share is a gift. It's the least of a gift that we can do to them to show them our gratitude.
If you want to join this conversation, 362-0013, and I want to tell you a great story. It's a humorous story. In the filming for this movie, we were up at a school in Port Jervis, and we brought veterans to talk to school kids, and one of the veterans is on the stage, Kenneth March. He was on the stage, and one of the students asked him, before you were drafted, what were you doing? And he said, well, I had just graduated high school, and in truth, I was playing baseball. And it piqued my interest, and it piqued someone else's interest, and they said, well, what do you mean playing baseball? And he said, I was playing minor league baseball in a league called the Canadian American League. And given my involvement here at the stadium and with the Boulders, it definitely piqued my interest, and it was, what do you mean? And he said, well, I played for Pittsfield in the Can-Am League. And I said, whoa, that is phenomenal. And I spoke to him afterwards. I came back. I called up Ken and Sean from the Boulders, and I said, I am sure I have the oldest living veteran of the Canadian American League, and maybe we can bring him down for Military Appreciation Night or Honor Flight Night. And we brought him down, and he came out on the field with a number of other veterans, Andy Abitangelo and a bunch of other guys, and he threw out the first pitch. He was a pitcher, and true, he's 94 years old, so there wasn't enough zip on his fastball. But he got it there, and when he came off, I said, what'd you throw? He said, I wasn't going to give him a fastball. I threw him a breaking ball. And everybody cracked up, and the team loved it, and the fans loved it. It really was gratifying, and hopefully we can bring him back again this summer. But it was a great story, and he was such a good guy.
And what a gift to be able to give him, to give him some of his glory days back. In this arena, to really connect that to him, and maybe you would not have known that had it not been for this experience. And I think that's just an added benefit.
100%, I wouldn't have known that, because before a friend of mine, Susan Satterley, called me up a couple of years ago and said, I know you know a little bit about cameras. You want to come and give us a little bit of a hand here at Honor Flight? And I thought about it, and I said, okay. I went to a meeting, and I met a lot of the Honor Flight people, and I proposed to them doing a documentary, and I didn't know where I'd find the money. I didn't know where I'd find the people. I didn't know where I'd find anything, but I knew that it was important to give something back to this organization who serves World War II veterans. And it began that way. And again, 18 months of being immersed in the quality of life and what these guys are thinking and what the Honor Flight folks are doing, just was the most gratifying experience. I'll tell you what, when this began, the 4 people who started it were all right around 30. I think Steve Nicoli was just north of 30, 31 or 32, but everyone else was younger than 30. So the idea that kids, basically, everyone's a kid to me these days, but kids are not letting this era go by, and that is gratifying.
And just to kind of bring that to where we are now, the fact that this movie has connected the veterans with the next generation, and it's not just about the movie or Honor Flight. We're getting phone calls from schools, from school teachers who are saying, hey, can you bring some of these veterans to talk to my students, because we want to give them a piece of living history. And that is truly the way that they will continue to be honored for what they do.
We have a great way in this country of sending our young men and women off to fight in our name, and we don't have a great way to receive them when they come home. We try, and sometimes we get politically mucked up, and we just don't do a great job. And we didn't do a great job with the World War II veterans coming home. And this gives our generation, or the generations after them, the opportunity for whatever time left to welcome them with open arms, tell them thank you. And for the people who have lost parents, like our caller just did, and actually most of the people I know whose parents served, they lost them, to reconnect with them even after they're gone, and to feel they know their father or grandfather better than they did when they weren't speaking about the war so much, is really something that's really one of my proudest moments, honestly.
I think that, again, when you experience it, you will feel the spirit of the community, and it's very powerful.
We have another caller. Let's bring another part of the conversation in. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Joe.
How you doing?
Very good. This is a wonderful program. I mean, all of your programs are wonderful, and we thank you for what you do for the community.
It's
but
my
I
thank
have
you
a
to you.
relative going on the flight in April. He's over 100 years old, and he's a World War II veteran, and so proud of it. So
Well, I can tell you
thank
this
the
will be his
organization
best day.
for having this. He's just so excited about it.
Well, that is a great story. Thank you so much. We're excited. It's unbelievable the energy, the stamina that these men and women have. He's
102.
God bless.
Yeah. Yeah, and,
we had on our flight in April, actually a Rockland County resident. I think he's 102 right now, and he was dancing. He was dancing down the plane, and
wonderful.
And it just, the energy that they embody is really wonderful.
They did a lot for us, and we owe them a debt of gratitude and a lot of respect for them.
Well, we sure
I know I
do.
had 3 uncles in World War II, each in, this is separate and apart, they're all deceased now, but one was in the cavalry, one was in the Navy, and one was in the Army. And,
Well,
we appreciate that they gave the ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah. So we thank you, and God bless this wonderful country that we live in.
Well,
Thank you so
We
much.
feel the same way. You know, these are warriors. I call them sometimes lions and lionesses who, when you think about it, what they did. These are things over and over and over again. I can't possibly imagine doing if I was in the same spot. I mean, it always strikes me, whether it was Saving Private Ryan or going back to The Longest Day or any other films in between, that those transports opened and these guys jumped out into that cold water knowing what was facing them, and they did it anyway. And the folks that did the same thing on the beaches in the Pacific, and knowing that it's 5 degrees and snowing and the Battle of the Bulge, and there's so much carnage around you. I am in awe of people who had that kind of courage and that kind of capability. And I'll tell you one other thing, and that is the veterans of today look at these World War II veterans with such reverence. I do a lot of work with the Nam Knights, and they just love these guys.
They really do. They turn out in droves to continue to show their support. And again, these elderly men and women really continue to have hope when they see this outpouring, when they feel like, you know what, it was worth it. It was worth it.
Well, I could go on talking about this for the entire day, and this is the fastest moving show I think I've ever done, but we are getting down to the end of things right now. So let me just remind you of a couple of things. All right, hvhonorflight.com if you want to find out about Honor Flight and how you can participate in it. And I'm asking everybody, come on down to the movie on Saturday. It's a pretty good movie, and I think you'll have a really good time. And you can get tickets at www.generationbridge.bpt.me. And I'm proud as anything to be a part of this. And I'm proud to have you as a guest today, Beth, and thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Joe. And again, we are so excited for the movies on Saturday. We want Rockland County to see exactly what we're doing. So thank you for that gift.
Okay, Rockland, the challenge is out. Come on down and become involved in Honor Flight. And if you know a World War II veteran or you see a World War II veteran, take a moment and stop and say thank you for your service. So on behalf of sponsor Active International and Beth and all of Honor Flight and me, thanks for joining. Thanks for listening today, and we'll see you soon. All right, have a great one.
.44 degrees here at WRCR. Sunny skies. We are headed for a high of at least 48 this afternoon. Stay tuned for news and the complete Mark Hannick weather forecast coming up on the hour here at AM 1300 WRCR and WRCR.com.